marking a new chapter in Canada-China relations this Friday night. Mark Carney strikes a pivotal deal with the Asian superpower to slash a slew of tariffs.
Canada is forging a new strategic partnership with China.
From electric vehicles to canola, the potential impact on Canada's economy. A federal court revisits Ottawa's Convoy protests, the latest ruling calling the use of the Emergencies Act to end demonstrations unjustified. Plus, WestJet reverses course on its new seating plan, the backlash over passengers feeling cramped in the cabin. And returning valor.
It broke my heart because each one of those medals was a story.
The Canadian bringing long-lost military medals back to their rightful hands.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Nitu Garcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Prime Minister Mark Carney finished 2 days of meetings in Beijing with a rather unexpected development. New deals that signal a seismic reset in Canada-China relations. China has agreed to cut tariffs on Canadian canola in exchange for the opening of the Canadian market to made-in-China electric vehicles. China also agreed to drop visa requirements for Canadian tourists. Our chief political correspondent, David Akin, is traveling with the PM and has more on these landmark deals. David?
Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney came to China with one key objective, and that was to reduce punishing tariffs that China had imposed on Canadian canola. And by that measure, Carney largely succeeded.
Mr. Prime Minister.
It took a final one-on-one meeting between the two leaders, Chinese President Xi Jinping acknowledging a new chapter in relations between the two countries.
Prime Minister Carney, welcome to China.
Thank you, President Xi, for your hospitality.
China agreed to drop canola tariffs from as much as 85% down to 15%, and to do that by March 1st. Chinese tariffs will also be cut on Canadian lobsters, crabs, and peas.
Together, these results will unlock nearly $3 billion of export orders for Canadian farmers, fish harvesters, and processors.
Canada, for its part, will allow China to export up to 49,000 electric vehicles into the Canadian market.
That's less than 3% of the Canadian auto sector. So again, let's keep it in perspective.
China had wanted to drop all tariffs on electric vehicles, but Ontario Premier Doug Ford and others worried that would have decimated the Canadian auto industry. Instead, China will be allowed to export as many EVs into Canada as it was doing before Canada imposed steep tariffs back in 2023. And Canada is also open to Chinese firms investing in the Canadian automobile industry. Carney also acknowledged that his government once viewed China as a security threat, and that there are concerns in Canada and elsewhere about China's human rights record, about Taiwan, about democracy. And Carney said he raised those issues in private with President Xi.
We fundamentally stand up for human rights. We stand up for democracy, territorial integrity, rights to self-determination.
Now that wraps up Carney's time in China, but he's got a couple more stops before he comes home. First, he's going to head to the Gulf state of Qatar, and then he'll be going to Davos in Switzerland for the World Economic Forum. In both cases, what's Carney doing? He's trying to make more deals, meeting with foreign investors, foreign leaders. The goal, to diversify Canada's economy away from its reliance on the United States. David Akin, Global News, Beijing.
The reaction to Carney's deal-making with China has been swift on both sides of the border. Ontario Premier Doug Ford called the lowering of tariffs on some Chinese-made EVs a terrible, miscalculated decision. It's a sentiment shared by Canada's auto worker unions. While in the U.S., there's conflicting reaction to Canada building closer ties with a rival superpower. Mackenzie Gray reports.
Welcome to China.
Thank you very much.
Mark Carney taking a philosophical approach to China.
We take the world as it is, not as we wish it to be.
A message praised by the Chinese president, saying he wants stability between Canada and China.
Our relationship has progressed in recent months with China. It is more predictable.
President Trump.
A hedge against an unpredictable Donald Trump, who surprisingly didn't have any issues with Carney cozying up to China.
Well, it's okay. That's what he should be doing. I mean, it's a good thing for him to sign a trade deal. If you can get a deal with China, you should do that.
But renewing a free trade deal with the U.S. is another crucial economic imperative for Carney, with the man in charge of the U.S. negotiations contradicting the president on CNBC.
I think it's problematic for Canada. I think in the long run, they're not going to like having made that deal.
The China deal, a baby step in reducing Canada's massive trade dependence on the Americans, who say they don't need Canadian cars. But this isn't the way the Ontario Premier wanted it done.
This was not thought out properly. It wasn't consulted. It was a knee-jerk reaction as far as I'm concerned. And this is going to be a big, big problem.
Ontario, the heart of Canada's auto industry, employing hundreds of thousands of workers.
We are, now having to compete with very, very cheap vehicles from China, and that puts at risk good jobs in Canada.
Canada originally slapped the 100% tariff on Chinese EVs at the request of the Biden administration under Justin Trudeau, based in part on national security concerns that Mark Carney echoed during the campaign.
I think the biggest security threat to Canada is China.
But that worry now on the back burner, as industry insiders warn the potential for driver data to be sent back to China.
We invited a skunk to the picnic. Now, there's no guarantee the skunk is going to spray you. But what was the upside of having them there?
Carney believes that upside will come in 3 years, when he expects Chinese companies will form partnerships to build these cars in Canada, and through a potential major economic shift as a part of Carney's new strategic partnership with China.
All right, Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa. Thanks, Mackenzie. The deal is being met with a very different reaction in the prairies. Canada's canola producers say they're happy the huge Chinese market will be reopening to them. As Heather Yurex West reports, producers have been hurting since China, which used to be the second largest customer, slammed the doors shut last year.
On his second trip to China in search of relief for his province's canola farmers, Scott Moe is celebrating a big win.
So this is an absolute deal of tremendous significance to not only the Canadian agriculture industry, but to the Canadian economy more generally.
Under a new agreement, canola tariffs are set to change from 75.8% on Canadian canola seed imports and 100% on canola meal and oil to 15% on seeds and 0% on meal. Tariffs on canola oil will remain unchanged.
We are happy with the 15% tariff on oilseed. But the really good news is the meal is put to 0% tariff. So I think that's really good news and something that we can work with.
Market prices for Canadian canola were up on news of the trade deal, a welcome change from last spring when the tariffs helped push prices so low producers faced crippling losses while delivering a bumper crop.
On our farm, we produced between 300 and 350,000 bushels. So within the first 2 or 3 days, we had lost $500,000 on our farm.
But there are also fears that trade relief with China could be short-term and may not be a sure thing, with language in the agreement only stating that Chinese tariffs are expected to be removed this March, to last at least to the end of the calendar year.
We don't actually know if they're 100% going to do that, and it doesn't actually spill over into next year. So as farmers are planting this spring and getting ready for the harvest this fall, I don't think they know if this deal will stay in place for next year.
Still, a new deal with China is welcome and being met with cautious optimism, at least for now. Heather Yurex West, Global News, Calgary.
Canada's seafood industry is also among the big winners of the new deal, with Chinese tariffs on lobster and crab set to be removed in March. Exports of those seafood products have been subject to a 25% tariff since last March. Atlantic lobster producers say this deal relieves a lot of pressure on the industry.
Since these tariffs have come into place, we've seen an erosion of value of live exports going to China on the order of $130 to $150 million. Those are really big numbers, and we're not going to get those back. But what it means is going forward, we're going to have a place in that market.
The Chinese tariffs will be suspended until the end of the year, but the industry is hoping the reprieve will be made permanent. To other news now, and a major ruling from the Federal Court of Appeal. It found the Trudeau government did not have reasonable grounds to invoke the Emergencies Act 4 years ago to quell convoy protests. Truckers had blockaded parts of Ottawa and key border crossings over COVID health restrictions. But as Touria Izri reports, the justices felt the Liberals had other options to handle the disruption.
In 2022, the trucker convoy shut down Ottawa's core until the never-before-used Emergencies Act was invoked. 4 years on, and the federal government is still dealing with the legal fallout.
Today, the Federal Court of Appeal handed down a massive and historic victory for the rule of law and for the rights and freedoms of all Canadians.
The judges found while the harassment of residents and business owners was highly objectionable, it did not amount to serious violence or meet the definition of a national emergency.
The federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act.
That cleared the way for extraordinary powers, including the ability to freeze bank accounts. A public inquiry later found the decision was justified. The federal court and now the Court of Appeal ruled it was not.
We were convinced at the time, I was convinced at the time, it was the right thing to do.
Ottawa swiftly appealed in 2024, but on Friday lost again.
Public sentiment about the right of certain people to protest and the uncomfortable impact that has on those affected by protests isn't sufficient to invoke the Emergencies Act.
The decision marks the latest legal development in the Convoy saga. Organizers Pat King and Tamara Leach were both found guilty of mischief. Chris Barber was also convicted. The Office of the Public Safety Minister says it's reviewing Friday's ruling and considering next steps.
A future government that might want to use the Emergencies Act is now going to be extra conscious of the fact that there will be judicial review in all probability if the government goes too far.
A pandemic-era protest shaping Canadian law in the present. Touria Izri, Global News, Montreal.
Configuration cancelled. Coming up, the backlash forcing WestJet to go back to its old seating layout for recently revamped planes. Plus, Trump celebrates gaining a Nobel Peace Prize that he didn't win. WestJet announced a major reversal today, undoing its plans to add non-reclining seats with less legroom on some economy class flights. The Canadian airline had already installed the seats on 22 of its Boeing 737s, with plans for 21 more. The legroom was just 28 inches, or about 71 centimeters, the smallest amount of legroom on any large Canadian carrier. Jeff Semple reports.
The news from WestJet last September caused plenty of turbulence. Canada's second-largest airline announced it was adding another row in economy class by reducing legroom for some passengers down to 28 inches with non-reclining seats. WestJet said it was about keeping costs low and making air travel affordable. Passengers took a different view.
Very, very tight.
Damien Rosen's family just disembarked from one of the newly configured planes.
The legroom was quite snug.
It's hard for me, and I'm about the shortest person you're going to find.
Dad, can you just straighten out your legs there?
Impossible.
Edmontonian Amanda Schmidt recorded this video of her father, who's 6'3", on a Boxing Day flight to Toronto. It received more than 1 million views online.
It definitely made us reconsider who we were booking with.
In the wake of that backlash, the airline announced it was reversing course. WestJet declined our request for an interview, but in a statement said that making air travel more affordable to Canadians was in its DNA. At the same time, it is just as important to react quickly if they don't meet the needs of our guests.
I'm glad to see my parents will be able to fit in their seats when they do fly with them.
WestJet's move marks a rare reversal for an airline industry that has been trending towards cramming more passengers into tighter spaces.
In recent decades, average legroom on major U.S. airlines has shrunk by about 5 inches, while Airbus is reportedly considering these double-decker seats. WestJet had pointed to budget airlines in Europe, where legroom is even tighter.
The difference is that the low-cost carriers in Europe often are doing very short flights, and they're very inexpensive. And because of that, people are willing to take them.
But Canadian travelers say they've reached their limit.
If you're by the window and you have to get up to use the bathroom, and you're doing that funny crab crawl, I don't know. Well, how taller people manage.
Keep the seats as they are or make them better, not make them worse.
Jeff Semple, Global News, Toronto.
Calgary has lifted all water restrictions now that repair work has finished on the city's main water line. The Bear Spray South feeder line ruptured in late December, triggering a citywide push for water conservation and forcing some residents to have to boil their tap water. That line supplies about 60% of the city's water, but city officials admit the aging pipe could break again at any time, and crews and equipment are being kept on standby. Ahead, why Trump's pick for U.S. ambassador to Iceland is apologizing before his role is even official. As uncertainty looms over potential U.S. military action to support anti-government protests in Iran, the exiled crown prince of the country is asking Donald Trump to strike quickly while pitching a plan to oversee a transition of power. As Jackson Prosco reports, Trump seems to have backed down, at least for now.
An eerie quiet hangs over Tehran. Rights groups report protests have been quelled after a deadly response by the state that killed hundreds, if not thousands, of citizens. The nation now sits at a critical juncture.
I am uniquely positioned to ensure a stable transition.
A world away in Washington, the exiled crown prince, the son of Iran's last Shah, believes there is still an opportunity to topple the regime and perhaps return to power.
The Islamic Republic is close to collapse. Ali Khamenei and his thugs know this.
He called on U.S. President Donald Trump to launch military strikes targeting Iran's Revolutionary Guard. He asked for support for the protesters who have died and those who've risked their lives.
We're halfway across the river. There's no turning back. We will continue. The quicker the action happens, the more lives can be saved, and the sooner we can see the regime's collapse.
Trump's next move seems to be a mystery. The U.S. is reportedly sending an aircraft carrier to the region, though Trump has backed down from his threats to strike, seemingly at the urging of Middle Eastern allies.
Nobody convinced me. I convinced myself. You had yesterday scheduled over 800 hangings. They didn't hang anyone. They canceled the hangings. That had a big impact.
He changed course over the last few days just because he didn't feel that the protesters were going to win. And that's why he switched, which obviously has a lesson here for the opposition.
The next move may be up to Tehran. If more protesters are killed or if the regime seems weakened, Trump may seize the opportunity. Fearing a quagmire that could destabilize the entire Middle East, he may also sit on the sidelines, leaving the fight over Iran's future to those willing to face the regime head on, at least for now. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is reaffirming Canada's position Greenland should determine its own future.
The future of Greenland is a decision for Greenland and for the Kingdom of Denmark.
Carney says Arctic sovereignty was one of the issues he discussed with Chinese President Xi Jinping. U.S. President Donald Trump has cited the threat posed to Greenland by China and Russia as one of the reasons the U.S. should somehow acquire the island territory. Today, Trump suggested he may slap tariffs on countries who don't, quote, go along with his designs on Greenland. Trump's pick for the new U.S. ambassador to Iceland is apologizing after referring to that country as the 52nd state. Billy Long says his comment, which was made on the floor of Congress Tuesday night, was just a joke. Iceland's government doesn't think it's funny, seeking official clarification from the U.S. Embassy. Thousands of Icelanders have signed a petition demanding their foreign minister refuse to accept Long as ambassador. Long has not yet been confirmed for the position by the U.S. Senate. Donald Trump says he intends to keep Maria Corina Machado's Nobel Peace Prize. Late yesterday, the White House posted an image of Trump and the Venezuelan opposition leader as she presented the U.S. president with her award.
Why would you want someone else's Nobel Prize?
Well, she offered it to me. I thought it was very nice. She said, you know, you've had 8 wars, and nobody deserves this prize more than in history than you do. And I thought it was a very nice gesture.
The Nobel Committee says the prize remains inseparably linked to the person who won it, but says there are no restrictions on what winners do with the medal, diploma, and prize money. Misplaced medals. Next, how these military honors ended up back with their relatives. some long-lost war medals belonging to a late Canadian veteran have been returned to a Winnipeg family. The reunification was made possible thanks to the efforts of a military historian from Saskatchewan. Teagan Rasche reports.
Well, these are the 4 medals, of course, and Mel's dog tags.
Treasured historic keepsakes finally in the proper hands.
It really helps us remember him and remember who he was.
Winnipegger Bill Rayner is now in possession of his late uncle's military medals, who served in World War II. It comes a week after Global News did a story on a Saskatchewan-based military historian who was looking to reunite these misplaced medals with the Winnipeg family.
It was sure a surprise when I was watching TV, and the first thing I saw was Lettingham. And then I thought, gee, it could be my uncle.
Rayner wasted no time, immediately contacting the historian John Brady MacDonald. MacDonald put the medals in the mail, and they arrived in Winnipeg on Wednesday.
To be able to return that hero to their families is something very special.
This is the 16th set of military medals MacDonald has returned to a family. He doesn't charge anything for his efforts.
It's another mission accomplished.
But for families like the Rayners,
this is Mel, about the age of 4 or 5, I believe.
Receiving these medals is bringing back old memories.
I can just remember him as I saw him when I was a kid. And I remember that he and his wife Edith were very generous to us as kids.
Rayner plans to update the medals display case, including photos and details about his Uncle Mel.
Wherever the medals go, some information about Mel will go with them.
Before passing them along to his family.
They'll go to my daughter Kathy, who's anxious to have them. And we think after that it'll go to her son Jesse, who doesn't know about them now. But when he hears about them, he'll be very excited.
Ensuring that these lost medals never leave the family's hands again. Teagan Rasche, Global News, Winnipeg.
Sounds like they'll be passed down for many generations to come. That is Global National for this Friday. I'm Neetu Garcha. Tonight's Air Canada is a beautiful view of the sunrise this morning from White Rock, BC, and that was filmed by Global BC camera operator Tony Clark. Thanks so much for watching and hope to see you here again tomorrow. Have a great night.